Ambassador Marcus Thompson stared out the window of his office at the gleaming towers of New Washington, enjoying his last cup of Earth coffee. The message from the Galactic Council sat open on his desk, its blue holographic light casting shadows in the early morning sun. "They want me to do what?" he muttered, reading the message again. The Galactic Council had chosen him to lead the human delegation at the peace talks between the Meridian Alliance and the Outer Rim Confederation. More surprisingly, they insisted on providing a Raxian escort fleet for the journey. The door chimed, and Lieutenant Jessica Hayes walked in, her security uniform pressed perfectly, but her red hair escaping its tight bun. "Morning, sir. I hear we're getting alien babysitters for this trip." Thompson laughed, running a hand through his graying hair. "The Raxians, the most rule-bound species in the galaxy. This should be fun." "I've read their security protocols," Hayes said, dropping a tablet on his desk. "They have a 12-step process just for entering a room. Who needs 12 steps to walk through a door?" Before Thompson could answer, his comm unit buzzed. The Raxian escort fleet had arrived early, 3 hours early, to be exact. They were already demanding an immediate meeting to review proper diplomatic procedures. The ambassador and his security chief made their way to the spaceport's main conference room. They found 4 tall, blue-skinned Raxians standing perfectly still, their ceremonial robes without a single wrinkle. The lead Raxian, Commander Tor, looked like he had swallowed something sour when Thompson walked in carrying his coffee mug. "Ambassador," Tor said stiffly, "you are 3 minutes and 27 seconds late according to Galactic Standard Time." "Sorry about that," Thompson replied cheerfully. "Traffic was terrible. Would anyone like some coffee?" The horror on the Raxians' faces was almost comical. Lieutenant Hayes bit her lip to keep from smiling. "Ambassador," Tor continued, pulling out a massive datapad, "we must review the 472 essential protocols for diplomatic escort missions. We will begin with proper airlock entry procedures, which include 17 subsections." Thompson took a loud sip of his coffee. "Commander, how about we start with the important stuff, like what happens if we run into trouble out there?" "That would be Section 394, Tor said, looking offended. "We cannot discuss emergency protocols until we have covered basic movement protocols, meditation protocols, and proper sock folding techniques." Hayes couldn't help herself. Sock folding techniques. Indeed, one of the other Raxians spoke up. "Improperly folded socks have caused 3 diplomatic incidents in the last century." Thompson shared a look with Hayes. This was going to be a long trip. The next few hours were filled with increasingly detailed protocols. Thompson managed to stay awake only by imagining how these strict rules would hold up against typical human chaos. Hayes spent the time counting the ways their normal security procedures violated Raxian guidelines. She reached 112 before losing count. Finally, as Tor was explaining the proper way to hold a spoon during the 7th course of a diplomatic dinner, Thompson stood up. "Commander, this has been fascinating, but we need to start boarding. We have a schedule to keep." "But Ambassador," Tor protested, "we haven't covered proper boarding procedures, or the emergency protocols, or the backup emergency protocols for the emergency protocols." "We'll learn as we go," Thompson said with a smile that made all 4 Raxians twitch simultaneously. "That's the human way." As they walked toward the ship, Hayes leaned close to Thompson. "Sir, did you do that on purpose?" "Do what?" Thompson asked innocently, but the twinkle in his eyes gave him away. "Sometimes," Hayes said, watching the Raxians hurry after them while frantically consulting their rulebooks, "I think we humans cause more diplomatic incidents by accident than other species do on purpose." Thompson finished his coffee with a satisfied smile. "Lieutenant, that's what makes us so good at diplomacy. Nobody ever sees us coming." Behind them, Commander Tor was already calling for backup copies of the protocol manuals. This mission was definitely not going to follow the rulebook, but then again, when did humans ever do things by the book? 3 days into their journey, Captain Robert Miller was already driving the Raxian escort fleet crazy. He sat in his command chair on the bridge of the human diplomatic vessel Liberty, humming an old tune while watching the stars streak by. "Captain," his communication officer called out, "the Meridian Alliance patrol ships are requesting standard inspection protocols." "Well, let's say hello then," Miller said cheerfully. Behind him, Commander Tor, who had insisted on being present on the human bridge, looked ready to faint. The Meridian ships were impressive, sleek, silver vessels that moved with perfect precision. Their formation was so exact it looked like they had used rulers to position themselves. "Captain," Tor said stiffly, "we must follow the proper First Contact Inspection Protocol Manual, Section 7, Paragraph." Miller was already hitting the communication button. "Howdy there. This is Captain Bob Miller of the Earth ship Liberty. Nice ships you've got. They're really shiny." There was a long silence from the Meridian ships. Tor made a sound like a deflating balloon. "This is Meridian Patrol Leader Val," came the confused reply. "Did you just say, howdy?" "Sure did. We're headed to those peace talks, just taking the scenic route. Hope you don't mind us passing through your space. Say, those engines of yours look mighty impressive. What kind of fuel ratio do you use?" The Meridian Patrol Leader seemed thrown off by Miller's casual tone. This was not how formal inspections were supposed to go. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Hayes had entered the bridge and was watching the scene unfold with amusement. She noticed something odd about one of the Meridian ships. Its weapon ports were slightly open. "Hey," she said loudly. "Anyone else think those guys look a bit jumpy? Like space pirates pretending to be patrol ships?" The Meridian ships suddenly went silent. Commander Tor looked horrified. "Lieutenant, you cannot accuse an official patrol of being pirates. It's against Protocol Section 23, subsection." But Miller had already caught on. "You know, she's right. Real Meridian patrols always send their authorization codes first. These fellows haven't done that." The patrol ships suddenly broke formation. Their weapon ports opened fully. "Pirates!" Tor screamed, reaching for his protocol manual on space combat procedures. Miller grinned. "Now this is getting interesting. Hayes, remember that maneuver we practiced? The one that breaks 17 different space combat regulations?" Hayes asked with a smile. "That's the one." Before Tor could recite a single regulation, Miller spun the Liberty in a way that should have been impossible for a diplomatic vessel. Hayes had already reached the weapons console, though technically she wasn't supposed to be anywhere near it. The pirates, expecting an easy target, found themselves facing a diplomatic ship that moved like a fighter. Their confusion only grew when Hayes started broadcasting old Earth disco music on all frequencies. "What are you doing?" Tor demanded, clutching his manual like a shield. "Psychological warfare," Hayes shouted over the Bee Gees. "Plus, I really like this song." The pirates, thoroughly confused by the disco music and the diplomatic ship's unusual maneuvers, didn't notice the Raxian escort fleet moving into position. By the time they realized they were surrounded, it was too late. "Well, that was fun," Miller said as the pirates surrendered. "Anyone want to get lunch? I heard the chef is making tacos today." Tor looked at his protocol manual, then at the grinning humans, then back at his manual. Finally, he closed the book. I suppose we could eat first and file the incident reports later," he said weakly. Hayes patted him on the shoulder. "Now you're getting it. Though you might want to leave out the part about the disco music in your report. And the tacos." As they headed to the mess hall, Tor could be heard muttering, "How do I explain this to Central Command? Dear Command, today the humans violated 73 regulations, but it worked." Miller just kept humming, already wondering what other exciting things might happen on their way to the peace talks. With humans involved, it was sure to be anything but boring. Technical Officer Emily Parker was having a quiet day in the Liberty's communication room when all hell broke loose. Real space pirates this time, not the fake ones they'd dealt with earlier. A whole fleet of them. Well, that's not good, she muttered, watching 15 heavily armed ships appear from hyperspace. Her console lit up like a Christmas tree with warning signals. Commander Tor's voice came through the ship's speakers, calm but rigid. All vessels assume formation Delta 7 according to the Emergency Response Protocol Manual, page 394. Emily rolled her eyes and hit the override button. Sorry, Commander, but we don't have time for formations. Captain Miller, permission to try something crazy. Go for it. Miller's cheerful voice replied, making Tor sputter in protest. Emily's fingers flew across her keyboard. She had noticed something about the pirate ships. They were using an old communication system, one that was surprisingly similar to Earth's early satellite networks. Hey, Ambassador Thompson, she called out. Remember that cat video you were watching yesterday? Thompson, who had been calmly drinking coffee despite the crisis, grinned. The one with the kitten falling off the table. That's the one. I'm about to make it very popular with our pirate friends. Before anyone could stop her, Emily had hacked into the pirates' communication system. Instead of tactical data and targeting information, their screens were suddenly filled with an endless loop of Earth cat videos. What are you doing? Tor asked, watching in horror as Emily continued typing. Old Earth tactic, she explained. It's called a denial of service attack, but with cats. Their old systems can't handle the data stream. And who doesn't love cats? The pirate ships began to drift aimlessly as their crews tried desperately to clear their screens of playful kittens. But Emily wasn't done yet. Ambassador, she called out, ready for Phase 2. Thompson put down his coffee cup and walked to the weapons station, making Tor's eyes bulge. Ambassadors are not supposed to handle weapons, the Raxian protested. Really? Thompson said innocently. I must have missed that regulation. Besides, I was the top marksman in my academy days. While the pirates were distracted by the cat videos, Thompson took careful aim at their ship's communication arrays. One by one, he disabled them with surgical precision, all while humming Old MacDonald Had a Farm. Lieutenant Hayes watched the scene with pride. Sir, you never told me you could shoot like that. Never came up in the protocol discussions, Thompson said with a wink. Speaking of which, Emily, how about some music for our friends? Emily grinned and switched the cat videos to Baby Shark. The remaining pirate ships began to retreat immediately. That song is considered a war crime in 3 sectors, Hayes commented. 4 sectors now, Emily corrected, watching the pirates flee. I may have accidentally sent it to their entire network. Commander Tor stood in the middle of the bridge, his protocol manual hanging limply at his side. I don't even know where to begin writing this report. You violated the emergency response protocols, weapons protocols, communication protocols. But we won, Miller pointed out cheerfully. That's not the point. Tor exploded. You can't just play cat videos in the middle of a space battle. Why not? Emily asked. It worked, didn't it? Sometimes the best solution is the simple one. Simple. Tor looked like he was getting a headache. You call this simple? Simpler than Formation Delta 7, Thompson said, returning to his coffee. Besides, I learned something today. Apparently, even space pirates like cat videos. As Tor trudged off to attempt writing his report, Emily started humming Baby Shark. The entire human crew joined in, while their Raxian escorts tried very hard to pretend they weren't serving with a bunch of lunatics. Just think, Hayes said to no one in particular, we're not even halfway to the peace talks yet. The collective groan from the Raxian crew could be heard 3 decks away. Cultural attaché Michael Anderson was having a bad day. The diplomatic fleet had stopped at Space Station Gamma for refueling, and somehow he'd ended up at a formal dinner with the station's dignitaries. Now he was staring at 15 different forks, wondering which one wouldn't cause an interstellar incident. Remember, Commander Tor whispered frantically, the 7th fork from the left is for greeting the 3rd course, but only if it's served under a blue dwarf star, which we currently are not. Michael nodded, pretending he understood. He glanced across the table at Ambassador Thompson, who was cheerfully using all the wrong utensils and somehow making it look charming. The station's head dignitary, a tall purple-skinned being named High Chancellor Vix, watched Michael with all four of their eyes. Michael smiled nervously and reached for what he hoped was the right fork. It wasn't. The dining room went silent. Michael had just picked up the sacred fork of eternal judgment, used only during trials of galactic criminals. By picking it up during dinner, he had technically challenged the High Chancellor to a duel. "Oh dear," Tor muttered, already pulling out his diplomatic incident report forms. "This is going to take at least 7 forms to document." But before anyone could declare war, Thompson stood up and raised his glass. "Wonderful," he exclaimed. "I see you're familiar with the ancient Earth custom of the Dance of Reconciliation." "The what?" Tor and Michael asked simultaneously. "Why, when someone picks up the fork of challenge on Earth," Thompson continued smoothly, "it traditionally starts a celebration dance. Michael was simply honoring your customs by initiating ours in return." Michael caught on quickly. "Oh yes, the dance. Would you care to join us, High Chancellor?" Before anyone could consult the proper protocols, Thompson had moved to the center of the room and started doing the Macarena. Michael joined him, adding some disco moves he'd learned from Lieutenant Hayes. The High Chancellor's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. "This is an Earth custom." "Oh yes," Thompson said, now doing the chicken dance. "Very formal, very traditional. The more ridiculous it looks, the more respect it shows." To everyone's surprise, High Chancellor Vix stood up and attempted to copy the movements. Their long limbs made the Macarena look like a puppet having a seizure, but they seemed to be enjoying themselves. "This is highly irregular," Tor protested, but he was drowned out by the sound of Emily Parker hooking up Earth dance music to the station's speaker system. Soon, the entire dining hall was attempting Earth dances. The Raxian escorts watched in horror as centuries of proper diplomatic protocol were replaced by the YMCA. Even some of the younger Raxian officers were tapping their feet to the beat. "You know," Michael said to Thompson as they taught a group of aliens the cha-cha slide, "this wasn't covered in my diplomatic training." Thompson grinned. "Best diplomatic solutions never are. Look, even Tor is joining in." Indeed, the Raxian commander had been pulled into a conga line by High Chancellor Vix. He looked thoroughly confused, but was managing to keep rhythm. By the end of the night, 3 trade agreements had been signed, 5 long-standing feuds had been resolved, and the sacred fork of eternal judgment had been officially renamed the Fork of Festive Celebration. "I have to admit," Tor said later, trying to straighten his disheveled uniform, "that went better than expected. Though I'm still not sure how to file a report about a diplomatic incident that turned into a dance party." "Just right that we successfully integrated Earth customs with local traditions," Michael suggested. "And maybe leave out the part about the chicken dance," Thompson added. "Some things are better left undocumented." As they left the station the next day, Michael could still hear the aliens attempting to sing YMCA. Somehow, he suspected this wouldn't be the last diplomatic disaster that turned into an unexpected success. Chief Engineer Laura Wilson was elbow-deep in the Liberty's engine room when the quantum drive decided to throw a tantrum. Red warning lights flashed everywhere as the ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a shudder. "Well, that's not supposed to happen," she muttered, grabbing her tablet. Commander Tor's face appeared on her screen immediately. "Engineer Wilson, the quantum drive's malfunction has disrupted our entire fleet formation. According to the Emergency Technical Procedures Manual, we must now—" "Hold that thought," Laura interrupted, scanning the engine readings. "I need coffee for this. And duct tape. Lots of duct tape." The Raxian engineer who had been assigned to supervise her looked like he might faint. "Duct tape," he squeaked. "Yeah, the silver sticky stuff. And maybe some paper clips." Laura was already digging through her toolbox. "Oh, and can someone bring me that coffee I mentioned?" 5 minutes later, Ambassador Thompson arrived with a fresh cup of coffee, looking far too amused for someone whose ship was dead in space. "How bad is it?" Laura took a long drink of coffee and grinned. "The quantum field generator is out of alignment. The Raxian manual says it needs a complete replacement, which would take 3 weeks. "We don't have 3 weeks, Thompson reminded her. "Good thing I'm not following the manual then." Laura pulled a roll of duct tape from her pocket. "I've got a better idea." The Raxian engineer, whose name was Kel, started reciting safety regulations in a panicked voice. Laura ignored him and climbed into the maintenance shaft, duct tape in hand. "Ambassador," she called out, "remember that time we fixed the colony ship's life support with rubber bands and paper clips?" Thompson laughed. "How could I forget? The colonists still send us thank you cards made from those rubber bands." "Well, this is kind of like that, but with more quantum physics." Laura's voice echoed from inside the shaft. "Can someone hand me that coffee? And maybe play some music?" Emily Parker's voice came over the speakers. "Any requests? Something with a beat. Can't realign quantum fields without a good rhythm." As AC/DC's Back in Black started playing, more Raxian engineers rushed in, waving their manuals and looking horrified. They found Laura singing along while taping something that definitely shouldn't be held together with duct tape. "This is impossible," Kel protested. "You cannot fix a quantum drive with adhesive strips." "Watch me," Laura said, reaching for more tape. "Hey, pass me those paper clips too." What followed was 30 minutes of what the Raxians would later describe as mechanical heresy. Laura hummed along to the music, occasionally asking for more coffee or tape, while making repairs that broke at least 67 safety regulations. "Done," she finally announced, emerging from the shaft covered in engine grease and looking pleased. "Try it now, Captain." Up on the bridge, Captain Miller engaged the quantum drive. The ship hummed to life and jumped back into faster-than-light travel, moving 30% faster than before. "How?" Kel asked, staring at the engine readings in disbelief. "This breaks the laws of physics." Laura shrugged, finishing her coffee. "Sometimes you've got to show physics who's boss. Besides, I added some improvements while I was in there." "Improvements?" Tor's voice cracked over the comm. "With duct tape. And paper clips," Laura added proudly. "Don't forget the paper clips. We should reach the peace talks ahead of schedule now." As the Raxian engineers huddled in a corner, trying to figure out how to document repairs made with office supplies, Laura started cleaning her tools. "You know," she said to Thompson, "I think I just violated every repair protocol in their manual." Thompson smiled. "Yes, but you also got us back on track. Though maybe don't mention the duct tape in your report." "Too late," Laura said, pointing to Kel, who was taking pictures of her repair job. "I think they're making a new manual just for dealing with human engineers." "Let them," Thompson replied. "Sometimes the best solutions aren't in any manual." Security Officer James Cooper walked through the peace conference station with a smile on his face, telling jokes to everyone he met. The Raxian security team following him looked increasingly confused. "Officer Cooper," one of them said, "this is not the proper way to conduct a security sweep." "Sure it is," James replied cheerfully. "Watch and learn." He approached a group of alien diplomats and grinned. "Hey folks, heard the one about the Earth chicken crossing the space lane?" While the aliens looked puzzled, James carefully watched their reactions and body language. His trained eye caught sight of one delegate whose tentacles twitched nervously at the word chicken. "Lieutenant Hayes," he whispered into his comm unit, "got one acting suspicious in Section 7. Might want to check their background." Hayes' voice crackled back. "Already on it. By the way, that chicken joke is terrible." "That's the point," James said with a wink at the confused Raxians. "Nobody's themselves when they're groaning at bad jokes." Meanwhile, Ambassador Thompson was causing his own kind of chaos in the pre-meeting arrangements. He sat in the main conference room, feet propped up on the table, while Commander Tor tried to explain proper seating protocol. Ambassador, you cannot sit the Meridian delegate next to the Outer Rim representative. It's against Protocol Section 89. Paragraph. Why not? Thompson asked, sipping his ever-present coffee. They both like sports. Did you know they follow Earth soccer? That is not a valid diplomatic consideration. Tor sputtered. Sure it is. Watch this. Thompson waved over both delegates who had just entered the room. Hey folks, who do you think will win the World Cup this year? 20 minutes later, the two supposedly hostile delegates were deep in a friendly argument about soccer teams, completely forgetting they were supposed to hate each other. Emily Parker, monitoring communications from her station, grinned as she listened in. Sir, you're breaking about 15 diplomatic protocols right now. Only 15. Thompson looked disappointed. I must be losing my touch. The station was filling up with delegates from across the galaxy. James continued his security sweep, telling increasingly terrible jokes and identifying 3 more suspicious individuals just from their reactions to his puns. How are you doing this? The head Raxian security officer asked, amazed. Simple, James explained. When people are planning something bad, they can't laugh naturally at stupid jokes. Plus, nobody expects security to act like a bad comedian. In another part of the station, Laura Wilson was examining the conference room's security systems. Hey, she called out, who wants to see me improve these scanners with a rubber band? And some chewing gum. Please don't, Tor begged, but it was too late. Laura was already at work, humming the theme from Mission Impossible. The day continued in similar chaos. Michael Anderson accidentally on purpose mixed up the name cards at the welcome dinner, somehow resulting in 3 long-standing trade disputes being resolved over dessert. Hayes discovered 2 hidden weapons just by asking delegates about their favorite Earth movies. Apparently, guilty people had very strong opinions about romantic comedies. As evening approached, Tor found Thompson in the observation lounge, watching the stars. Ambassador, he said wearily, your team has violated 62 protocols today alone. And how many security threats have we stopped? Thompson asked. 5. No, 6 now. Officer Cooper just caught another one with that horrible joke about the astronaut and the coffee maker. Thompson smiled. Sometimes the best way to handle serious situations is to not be serious at all. That's the human way. I'm beginning to think, Tor said slowly, that there might be some logic to your madness. Don't let it get around, Thompson winked. We humans have a reputation for chaos to maintain. As they watched the stars together, another one of James's terrible jokes echoed down the hallway, followed by groans and one suspiciously forced laugh. There's number 7, Thompson said cheerfully. Want to help me mess up the seating chart some more? Tor looked at his protocol manual, then at Thompson's grinning face, and made a decision. He put the manual down. Just don't tell anyone I helped, he said. Lieutenant Jessica Hayes was pretending to be lost. She wandered the conference station's corridors with a confused look on her face, checking her tablet as if trying to find directions. In reality, she was following a suspicious delegate from the Outer Rim. I think I've gone in circles, she said loudly to herself, watching the delegate's reflection in a shiny wall panel. The alien was definitely heading somewhere they shouldn't be. Her comm unit buzzed quietly. Any sign of trouble? James Cooper's voice whispered. Oh, just following our friend with the twitchy tentacles. The one who didn't laugh at your joke about the space penguin. Meanwhile, in the main conference hall, Ambassador Thompson was cheerfully ignoring all the proper ceremonial procedures. The opening ceremony was supposed to take 3 hours and involve 14 different ritual greetings. Folks, he announced to the gathered delegates, let's skip the fancy stuff and get straight to the point. Who wants coffee? Commander Tor, standing nearby, nearly dropped his protocol manual. Ambassador, the sacred rituals of diplomatic engagement clearly state that we should waste 3 hours bowing to each other. Thompson interrupted. Or we could start actually talking and get something done. To everyone's surprise, the Meridian Alliance leader spoke up. I actually wouldn't mind some of that coffee. Wonderful. Thompson pulled out a thermos. Anyone else? I'd brought enough for everyone. Real Earth coffee, not that synthetic stuff. As Thompson served coffee to supposedly hostile alien delegates, Emily Parker monitored communications from her station. She noticed an encrypted signal being sent from somewhere in the station. Hey Laura, she called over the comm. Remember that thing we did with the cat videos? Already on it, Laura replied from her engineering station. Want me to use the dancing kittens this time? Back in the corridors, Hayes watched her target approach a restricted area. The delegate looked around nervously, not noticing Hayes pretending to take selfies nearby. Found our troublemaker, she whispered into her comm. About to crash their party. The delegate entered a code into a door panel. Hayes waited 3 seconds, then walked up humming Baby Shark. Oh hey there, she said brightly. I'm so lost. Is this the way to the buffet? I heard they have those little blue cookies everyone likes. The delegate froze, caught between their secret mission and the need to maintain their cover. Hayes kept smiling, but her hand was ready near her hidden stunner. The buffet is that way, the delegate pointed nervously. Thanks. Say, while I got you here, what did you think of James's penguin joke? I told him it needed work, but he insists it's hilarious. The delegate's tentacles twitched violently. That was all Hayes needed. In one smooth motion, she had them stunned and cuffed. Got one, she announced cheerfully into her comm. They really didn't like the penguin joke. Back in the conference hall, Thompson was leading a surprisingly productive discussion. Somehow, his complete disregard for proper procedure had gotten the delegates to actually talk to each other like normal people. You know, the Meridian leader said, sipping coffee, I didn't expect these talks to be so informal. Sometimes informal works better, Thompson replied. Hard to stay angry at someone when you're sharing coffee and comparing vacation photos. Tor, watching all of this, shook his head in amazement. I don't understand. You've broken every rule of diplomatic protocol, yet everyone seems happier. That's because they can finally relax and be themselves, Thompson explained. No one can negotiate properly when they're worried about using the wrong fork. Just then, Hayes walked in, casually dragging her stunned prisoner. Found an assassin, she announced. Anyone want more coffee? The delegates stared at her, then at the unconscious would-be assassin, then at their coffee cups. Perhaps, Tor said slowly, some rules are meant to be broken. Now you're getting it, Thompson grinned. More coffee, anyone? Commander Tor sat in his office, surrounded by stacks of reports, trying to explain how the humans had achieved peace through complete chaos. His computer screen blinked, waiting for him to continue typing. How do I even describe this? He muttered to himself. Dear Galactic Council, the humans succeeded by ignoring every protocol we have. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Ambassador Thompson walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might need this, Thompson said, placing 1 cup on Tor's desk. Having trouble with the final report. You have no idea, Tor sighed. How do I explain that peace was achieved through bad jokes, coffee, and dance parties? Don't forget the duct tape, Laura's voice called from the hallway. The quantum drive is still running 30% faster than specifications. The peace talks had ended 2 days ago, with every major issue resolved. The Meridian Alliance and Outer Rim Confederation had signed not just a peace treaty, but also 3 trade agreements and a cultural exchange program. Nobody quite understood how it had happened. Remember, Emily Parker said, poking her head into the office, you should probably leave out the part about me hacking their systems to play cat videos on a loop until they agreed to the mining rights treaty. Tor groaned. I have to include something in the report. Just right that we used alternative diplomatic methods, Thompson suggested. It's technically true. Alternative diplomatic methods. James Cooper laughed as he walked by. Is that what we're calling my collection of bad space jokes now? Lieutenant Hayes appeared next, munching on some of the blue cookies from the buffet. Well, those jokes did help us catch 8 assassins, 3 spies, and 1 very confused maintenance worker who just happened to hate puns. Tor looked at his protocol manual, then at his computer screen, then back at the humans. The Galactic Council is already creating new protocols specifically for dealing with human diplomats. They're calling it the Expect the Unexpected protocols. Now that's flattering. Thompson grinned. Though I bet we'll find ways around those too. Michael Anderson rushed in, looking excited. You won't believe this. 3 more worlds just requested human diplomats for their peace negotiations. They specifically asked for the ones who do the dancing and tell bad jokes. Our reputation precedes us, Thompson said proudly. Tor, your people are welcome to come along too. You've gotten pretty good at improvising yourself. Tor thought about how he helped rearrange the seating chart to cause diplomatic accidents that led to resolutions. He had to admit, the human way was strangely effective. The Council wants to know if this success can be replicated. Tor said, gesturing at his screen. Of course it can, Laura called out. I've got plenty of duct tape left. And I've downloaded some new cat videos, Emily added. Plus, I've been working on new jokes, James said. Want to hear the one about the astronaut and the space llama? No, everyone shouted in unison. Thompson laughed and picked up Tor's protocol manual. You know what? Maybe we should write our own manual. We could call it The Human Guide to Diplomatic Chaos. How to save the galaxy with coffee, bad jokes, and duct tape. Don't forget the dancing, Michael added. The chicken dance has prevented at least 2 wars now. Tor finally smiled and started typing his report. While unconventional, the human diplomatic methods have proven surprisingly effective. Perhaps it is time for the Galactic Council to recognize that sometimes the best way to achieve peace is to break a few protocols. And a few laws of physics, Laura interrupted. And maybe add some cat videos, Emily chimed in. Thompson raised his coffee cup. Here's to chaos, bad jokes, and peace through confusion. Everyone raised their cups in response, even Tor. After all, it's hard to argue with success, even if it comes with terrible puns and dancing diplomats. Just promise me one thing, Tor said. No more baby shark during negotiations. No promises, Hayes grinned. Sometimes you need the nuclear option.